Okay, there's, as I said, tea and coffee and cake for the people over here, and this is going live. I believe we are live now. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our JLI class. The topic today is the Kabbalah of meaning, and it's going to be a very meaningful class. That's what we're here for. Okay, fantastic to see everybody tonight. So please open up your textbooks, ladies and gentlemen, to the beginning of this class, which is, it's called The Meaning We Seek. I'm on the beginning of chapter 1. And it says, lesson 1, the meaning we seek. When we have it all, we still need something more. Purpose. Discover 4 fundamental human qualities that provide lasting fulfillment. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, we are going to start with an exercise. We're going to start with an exercise. I'd like you to turn to page 6 in your textbooks. Please turn to page 6 in your textbooks, where there's an exercise. The exercise is like this. Describe at least one activity that brings you pleasure and that you find meaningful. So if you have a pen or a pencil, please take it out and write down for yourself at least one activity that both gives you pleasure and you find meaningful. Then the second question is, describe at least one activity that brings you pleasure, but which you do not find meaningful. It's pleasurable, but not meaningful. And then, ladies and gentlemen, the third question is, describe at least one activity that you find meaningful, but which does not bring you pleasure. Okay, so the purpose of this exercise, ladies and gentlemen, is to examine the relationship between pleasure and meaning. And we're asking for one example of something that is both pleasurable and meaningful. One example of something that is only pleasurable but not meaningful, and another example of something that is meaningful but not pleasurable. Okay, I'm going to be back in 30 seconds, ladies and gentlemen, while you do your work. You do not have to share your answers, so you can keep it confidential if you want to. Would anyone here like to share their answers? Something that is, the first question is an example of something that is both pleasurable and meaningful. Is there anyone here who would like to share something? Let's start with Elaine. Pleasurable and meaningful. Writing. You're an author and you write. That's beautiful. You're an author and you write beautifully, and you say that it is both pleasurable for you to write and it is meaningful for you to write. That is a beautiful answer. That's a beautiful example. Thank you for sharing. Is there anyone over here who has the courage to share something they find pleasurable but not meaningful?
Your classes.
My classes are pleasurable but not meaningful?
No, but they are meaningful. The first.
Oh, they're both. Okay, thank you very much. I thought you were going to say they're pleasurable.
No.
If I have to choose, by the way, if I have to choose between pleasurable and not meaningful, or meaningful but not pleasurable for my class, if you guys are having a good time, I don't care if you find it meaningful. I'm joking. So you're saying, that's very kind of you. Svetlana says you find it both pleasurable and meaningful. How about an example of something that is only pleasurable, but it is not meaningful?
Oh, I have one.
Misha, yes.
I'm watching police crime show. I derive pleasure from it. Many police crime show, I love them, but they're not meaningful.
I'm sorry, I missed what you said. Watching something, what's
police crime shows.
Police crime shows on television.
Yes.
Beautiful. Police crime shows on television. They are pleasurable, but there is nothing meaningful about it. You enjoy it. It's fun, but that's about it. You never,
Yes.
you never woke up the next morning and say, "Oh, I wish I would have spent another 5 hours doing that last night." Okay, that's beautiful. Fantastic. Good example. Thank you very much. And it's a nice example because it's a pretty harmless example.
Yeah.
It's a pretty harmless example. Very often, things that are pleasurable but not meaningful can actually be more harmful for us. But that's a pretty innocuous example. Watching an innocent show on television is not, you could probably do worse than that. Okay. That's a good example. What about meaningful but not pleasurable? Anyone who wants to share an example of something they find meaningful, but they don't enjoy it? Tope says this class. Well, you don't have to be here.
Cleaning the house.
Pardon?
Cleaning the house.
Cleaning the house. Cleaning the house. Very few people love doing housework. You love it? Okay. Well, you're a lucky lady. But most of us find it meaningful. It's important. We like living in clean homes, but we don't find it particularly meaningful. We don't find it particularly pleasurable, or many of us don't find it so pleasurable, but we definitely find it meaningful. That's a good example. Chores are a good example of that. Okay, so the point of this exercise, ladies and gentlemen, is to examine the difference between meaning and pleasure. Now, if we could, obviously, if we could live our lives in a meaningful and pleasurable, if we could live our lives in meaningful and pleasurable, we would have wonderful, wonderful lives, right? Unfortunately, very often we have to do the meaningful that's not pleasurable, the important things that have to be done. And in this world, the reality is we're very tempted by the pleasurable that's not meaningful. There are many pleasures out there that aren't necessarily meaningful, and sometimes it's harmful and sometimes it's harmless. But there's a great involvement over there. But the problem is, if we're spending our life in pleasurable but not meaningful, well, then our lives may not be very meaningful, or as meaningful as we would like them to be. And therefore, it's so important to find not just pleasurable, but to find meaningful. Okay, that was a little exercise just to get us thinking about meaning. The point of this exercise, ladies and gentlemen, this course is called the Kabbalah of Meaning. And the point of that first exercise that we just did is to get us thinking about meaning and thinking about the things in our lives that we find meaningful and important, and to be thinking about how to be, just to start the conversation. Now, this is also called the Kabbalah of Meaning. That's what this class is, the Kabbalah of Meaning. And we're going to study some Kabbalah here tonight, in different ways and in different shapes and different forms. Now, I'd like to give an introduction to Kabbalah. There are different types of Kabbalah courses that a person might take. There are different types of Kabbalah courses. Sometimes Kabbalah courses are very focused on what the Kabbalists call theoretical Kabbalah, abstract theology. Kabbalah courses can be, and we actually gave one a year or two ago, on a very theoretical kind of theological Kabbalah, analyzing the relationship of God and the world, and how the world was created from the perspective of the Kabbalists, and multiple worlds, and how the journey, how you go from infinite cosmic oneness of Hashem down to the multiplicity and diversity of things that exist in this world. That's one type of course you can give, and you can analyze some of the highest abstract levels, and you can try to understand, and that's a very philosophical kind of approach to Kabbalah. That's one approach to Kabbalah. Kabbalists do it, and it's like academic Kabbalah. That's one type of study of Kabbalah. There's another kind of Kabbalah course. There's another kind of Kabbalah course where you learn what's called practical Kabbalah. Practical Kabbalah, in a theoretical sense, the theory of practice, I love that. The theory of practice of Kabbalah is that practical Kabbalah is you take mystical ideas and you do magical things on earth with mystical ideas. So famously, the Maharal of Prague in the 1500s or 1600s, I think 1500s even, famously created a golem from dust of the earth. He went down to the river and he shaped the form of a man out of the clay of the river, out of the earth. And he said all kinds of mystical incantations, and he brought a golem to life. And it's a very famous story of the Golem of Prague. And that's another kind of Kabbalah. I don't know how to teach that one. I once asked one of my teachers, can you teach us how to make a golem? And he said, the real goal of Kabbalah is not to learn how a man makes a golem, but the real goal is how do you take a human who acts like a golem and turn them into a mensch? Very good. How do you turn a golem into a mensch? And so, ladies and gentlemen, that's the kind of Kabbalah this class is going to focus on. How do we take human beings who are wonderful people with all kinds of incredible potential, and how do we live our highest selves based on the teachings and ideas of Kabbalah? How can we bring ourselves to the highest version of ourselves that we could be and live the most meaningful lives that we can be? That's what we're going to be doing in this course. And therefore, it's going to sound very practical. When we're going, as much as possible, we're going to be doing a little bit of jargon. We're going to be doing a little bit of Kabbalah jargon. But for the most part, this course is going to use Kabbalistic ideas in very practical language. Okay, we're bringing it into our personal lives in a very deep and real way. That's the goal of here. De-jargonizing Kabbalah is what we're going to try to do. We're going to avoid jargon, but we're going to do some of it as well, because I know some people love it. And so we've got to give everybody a little bit of everything. Yes, Marty?
Is Kabbalah a verb, an explanation of how it's studied, or?
Okay, very, very good question. Is Kabbalah a verb? Asked Marty. Actually, in this context, Kabbalah is a noun, and it's a noun that refers to the mystical side of Judaism, the mystical teachings, the mystical tradition within Judaism. Kabbalah actually is from the Hebrew word lekabel, which means to receive. It is the received tradition, a mystical tradition for many thousands of for many hundreds of years. It was a hidden wisdom, and over the past 500 years, maybe over the past 1,000 years, but certainly over the past 500 years, this received secret wisdom has become more and more revealed in the world. And especially in our time, these teachings are being taught more than ever. And we have access now to deep mystical secrets that will be shared in this class in a very practical way. We're going to try to de-jargonize it. If anyone feels they want more jargon, more Kabbalistic language, let me know. I can do jargon for those who like jargon. Okay, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this, okay? So let's go back one page in our books to page 3. And we have a quote over here from Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes is a book of the Bible from the Holy Scriptures, from Ketuvim, written by King Solomon. It describes the wisdom of the wisest man, right? Solomon was the wisest man who ever lived, and some say he wrote this in his older age when he'd seen it all. And he starts off the book of Ecclesiastes of Kohelet famously with the words, Divrei Kohelet ben David melech b'Yerushalayim. He himself, Solomon, is Ecclesiastes. He calls himself Aviyah Kohelet, which is Ecclesiastes in English. Hakol hevel havolim ama Koheles, hevel havolim hakol havel. Famous words. In English, they mean. Page 3 in our books, text 1. The words of Kohelet, son of David, king in Jerusalem. Futility of futilities, said Kohelet. Futility of futilities, the whole world and everything in it is futile. Pretty pessimistic view of life, right? Often it's translated not as futility of futilities, but as vanity of vanities, or nothingness of nothingness. Basically, everything is just futile, vain nothingness, says King Solomon. And then he starts to pursue and will wonder, is there anything meaningful in this world? And we will explore his journey through this course, okay? But we start off with the perspective of a cynical person, or at least a cynical question. Is there any meaning in life? Is there anything valuable? Is there anything is there anything worth anything? Or is everything just futile and nothing? And honestly, ladies and gentlemen, it's a very real question. It's a very honest question. Because sometimes it's very normal for people to wonder if there is any value to anything in this world. Right? Is there anything that's truly valuable in this world, or is it all just a fleeting dream? Here today, gone tomorrow, and maybe there is no purpose to the whole thing at all. And we will come to the conclusion that there is meaning and there is value. But the question is a very honest and real question. What profit has man in all his toil, that he toils under the sun? Is there any valuable in all our life's labor? Is there anything? A generation goes and a generation comes, but only the earth endures forever. And it's not, it's a tough question. But we will learn in this class, yes, that there is value to life. And we're going to explain it and explore that as we go through this course in deeper and deeper ways. So lesson 1, ladies and gentlemen, is the introductory class. And as we go to lesson 2 and lesson 3, we're going to build on the ideas and go deeper and deeper into the topic. If you have to miss a class, each lesson is a standalone unit, but each one does build on the other. We do record the classes, as you saw, especially the people at night. Please remind me always to record in case I forget. People ask me for it. So you can do that. If you ever need to switch between the night course and the morning class, you're able to do that as well. I also want to say that I sent it out in the email, but I want to mention it specifically, that this course is dedicated in the memory of somebody who's been coming to our classes, our JLI classes, for nearly 2 decades, Judy Tannenbaum, who passed away yesterday. I don't know how many people knew. I think some of you know Judy, knew Judy. Is very sad, a very courageous woman. And sadly, she passed away yesterday, and we wish condolences to the family, and I definitely want to dedicate our learning in her memory. Okay. Page 3, ladies and gentlemen, at the bottom of the page, we have a quote over here from Lisa Miller, a psychologist. I think she lives here in Connecticut. I know her. It's a good lady. And she says like this: depression, anxiety, and substance abuse have reached epidemic proportions globally. In 2017, 66.6 million Americans, more than half of the respondents of the National Survey on Drug Use and Health, reported binge drinking within the past month, and 20 million met the criteria for a substance use disorder. 31% of American adults will develop a full-blown anxiety disorder at some point in their lives, and 19% in any given year. The World Health Organization reports that 264 million people on the planet are depressed. Depression is the 3rd most costly disability worldwide. Each year, 17 million Americans, adults, are depressed. Over 16% of youth in late adolescence currently face depression, and the impact of depression on suicide accounts, and this is shocking, for the second leading cause of death in adolescence, rivaled only by death by auto accidents. While the stakes of our mental health crisis are truly life and death, many of us also suffer from less debilitating, though still painful conditions. Burnout and chronic stress, trouble concentrating and connecting, loneliness and isolation, lives that are rich in many ways yet feel somehow narrow, hollow, and cut off. Even when we experience success and satisfaction, we may sense that there's more to happiness, that life could be more joyful, rewarding, and meaningful. I'm going to go now to the PowerPoint. I'm going to share screen over here. That didn't work. What's going on here? Stop share. I don't know what's going on. Am I sharing? Where do you see an arrow? This thing? No.
Go forward.
1 second.
It says that you started screen sharing and to double click to enter full screen mode. That means anything.
My screen. There we go. I see it. Okay, wait a sec. Share. What is going on over here? Let's close this.
Done.
Share. Let me try that one more time.
Wait.
Nope, still not
Open
working.
Zoom CD.
Okay. The share is, oh, it's on the, oh, I know what's happening. I know what's happening.
Mm.
1 second. 1 second. Okay, I know what's happening. It's the way the it's the PowerPoint is sharing in a funny way. Wait a second, 1 second, 1 second.
Go down here instead of clicking entire screen, click application windows.
Where Dope? See, Dope is here, he'll solve it for me.
This one here, I was what is it?
Oh, click. Wait, show everything else. Oh,
No, I've got it on
I know what to do.
backwards. I need to,
oh,
I know what the problem is. No. Okay, wait a second. Let me go to the Zoom 1 second.
1 and 2.
Let me close. Oh,
Not looking at the keyboard.
now wait a second. No. Let me close this. Let me go here. I think I know what to do here. Slideshow. Play from start. And I need to switch the way why is it not letting me?
Live show top.
Oh, I do it from here.
Yes, look at the.
Oh, there we go. I see.
It's like 1 and 2. Here.
What do you want me to do? I don't see the 1 and 2. They're not showing it to me.
The theory.
Oh, that's a good theory, but it didn't work. This is ridiculous.
So they can see.
See, no, it's backwards. That's supposed to be my screen, and that one's. And I don't know how to fix that.
They can't see it anymore.
Now I'll be able to get it working in a second. There we go. Okay, now use slideshow. I got it working. Okay, I apologize, ladies and gentlemen, for the technical glitch. I can guarantee you, although I can't guarantee anything, but I would imagine it's probably not the last one. But we'll try our best. Okay, here we are. I find that very meaningful when things don't work out. Very pleasurable and very meaningful. Not very pleasurable and not very meaningful. Okay, so how do we find meaning? So Kohelet points out this issue. All is futile, only the earth endures forever. A lot of people are feeling that life is not very meaningful. A lot of people are struggling with this question. And that's one of the reasons and causes for so much depression in the world, and so much anxiety and stress and loneliness and all these things, because people are missing basic skills. And for those of us that are living wonderful lives, we all know we could have more meaning in our lives and live more aligned with the pleasure and the meaning and do the things that we do. But sometimes meaning isn't so fun. It's not always so pleasurable. And how do we balance all these things? And obviously the ideal is we can live with alignment, that our lives are meaningful. But when our lives are not meaningful and not pleasurable, we can't get it all together. This leaves us with a very frustrating existence. It can leave us with emptiness and it can leave us with frustration. And it's so important, ultimately, we're going to try to bring it all together. So, ladies and gentlemen, on the screen, we have a quote from Deuteronomy. The tree of the field is a human. In Hebrew, it's Ki Adam Eitz Hasadeh. The tree of the field is a human. And we have it in our books on page 7. A very interesting law in the Torah in Deuteronomy. It's actually from the rules of war, but it's applicable in other areas as well. And we're going to pick up specifically on this phrase, the tree of the field is a human. The Torah says, when you besiege a city for many days, waging war against it to capture it, do not destroy its trees by wielding an axe against them, for from them you shall eat, and you shall not cut them down. For the tree of the field is a human, that you should besiege it. Man is a tree. When you go to war and you besiege a city, don't cut down the trees, for man is a tree. What a funny, interesting metaphor. Man is a tree. So, ladies and gentlemen, there's a question there on page 7 at the bottom of the page. With a partner or by yourself, come up with as many similarities as possible between trees and humans. I'll give you 25 seconds to work on it, and then I'm going to ask people to call out some answers. In what way are people like trees? I'm turning off the slideshow for just a second while I do this. Something. Screen. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, anyone want to give me an example of how are trees like people?
We all need air and light. to live.
We need air and light. Just as trees need air and light, people need air and light. Very good. Good example.
It
Any
grows,
other examples?
grows from a seed.
Humans grow from a seed and trees grow from a seed. Trees grow and humans grow physically, right? Very good. How else are people like trees?
No two trees are the same.
Not all trees are the same, and not all people are the same.
No two trees are the same. They are
No
all
two trees are
different.
the same, and no two people are the same. Very good.
Yeah.
Very, very good example.
Mm.
Dovbe said an interesting one. They're all connected. What do you mean by that? Okay, stop it.
I was gonna go with that. Trees that survive, the most of these that have deeper roots, are the ones that can survive storms.
So trees that have strong roots survive. And how do you see that in humans?
People with deeper connections tend to survive.
Yeah.
People with deep connections have a tremendous resilience. That's a very good example. So now you're looking not only on the biological level, but on a metaphorical level. Very good. Very good. Any other examples?
Love need love and care.
Both need love and care. Humans need love and care, and trees need love and care. Very good. Very, very good.
Have the interdependence, like the water, earth and sun, but also the roots grow down and the branches grow up. There's a balance.
There's a balance and an interdependence with the world around it, and we have balance and we need balance and interdependence with the world around us. Very good. There are more examples. There are more examples. We are going to explore 4 similarities between trees and people in today's class. And from that, we will learn how to have a meaningful life. Well, we already have meaningful lives, but even more meaningful lives. So we're going to explore. The answer is yes. The answer is yes. Trees have a meaningful purpose. But let's look at key tree characteristics on page 8. Figure 1.1. The first thing we're going to say about trees is that trees grow. And just as if a tree is not growing, it's no longer really fulfilling its purpose. It's no longer, trees do grow. They always grow. As long as they're alive, they're growing. So too, a human needs to grow. A person needs to constantly be growing. Not necessarily physically, but emotionally, psychologically, intellectually, spiritually, a person needs growth. Number 2, trees are productive. They do something for the world. Firstly, they produce oxygen for the world. Secondly, they produce fruit for the world. They're doing something. They provide homes to birds. Trees have a role. They're doing something in the world. Humans need to be productive. Number 3, trees give to others. We have to give. And number 4, trees have relationships with other trees. Not necessarily in a human kind of relationship, but at a certain level, and we too need to have relationships to have a meaningful life. Which brings us, ladies and gentlemen, to the first thing we explore in today's class, which is productivity. Now, let me see if I can make this work again with it. Did the wrong thing. All this technology is so fantastic. Away from current slide. Go back to new slideshow. It's all working, Dovbe. Baruch Hashem, we got it to work. Here we go. So, now what's happening? Another important thing about trees is trees don't move. They're rooted in the ground. Trees don't move. They're rooted in the ground. That's, by the way, the difference between a tree and an animal. Animals move. But we're going to explore later in today's class a little bit of Kabbalah about the 4 elements of the universe. But we're going to wait with that for a bit. But they grow up. They don't move downwards, they move upwards. So it says here, worthy scholar and unworthy scholar. Look at page 10, a quote from the Talmud. Page 10, text 4. What is the meaning of the verse, "For the tree of the field is a human"? Asks the Talmud. Is man actually a tree of the field? And the Talmud says like this. Earlier in the same verse it is written, "For from them you shall eat, and you shall not cut them down." And it's written in the next verse, "However, if it is a tree that you know is not of fruit," excuse me. "However, if it's a tree that you know is not a food tree or a fruit tree, you may destroy and cut it down." So this is a very important thing. We said before that when you go to war, this is the law. When you go to war and it comes time to cut down trees for a siege, the Torah says you are not allowed to cut down fruit trees. Only barren trees, trees that don't give fruit. In fact, in general, you're allowed to cut down any tree for wood. Fruit trees should not be cut down by Jewish law. There's a very big, there's much stronger prohibition against cutting down fruit trees. I can't say that they're never allowed to be cut down, but as a general rule, we don't chop down fruit trees because fruit trees bring fruit into the world. This indicates, says the Talmud, that there are certain trees that may be cut down while others may not be destroyed. How so? If a Torah scholar is worthy, from them you shall eat and you shall not cut them down. But if he's not worthy, says the Talmud, you may destroy and cut down. So in other words, there are 2 types of teachers. There's one teacher who's a worthy teacher, and that is a teacher that is a tree with fruit, or a scholar, or a refined human being. And then there's a person who doesn't have any fruit. And you don't want to learn from that person. That you can cut down. Maybe even cut them down to size. Or maybe they should cut themselves down to size and learn to have fruit. So what does all this mean? So the Hebrew word is, page 11, when we talk about a human over here, we're using the Hebrew. Okay, but first, before we go there, it says growth. Like trees, the desire for self-betterment is inherent to our very nature. In the verse, when we said man is like a tree of the field, we use the Hebrew word Adam. Adam, Adam. Dovbe. How do I look at this? Pen. Adam. His name is Adam, right? You see this on the screen? You can see me writing. How cool is that? Sometimes technology is fantastic. How do you like my handwriting? Adam. Why is man called Adam? Anyone know? Well, we know the first human being was called Adam. Remember that? Why was the first human being called Adam?
Adam means man.
Why does Adam mean man?
It's Adam's first name.
But why was he called
made
Adam?
because he was made out of Adamah.
Very
out of
good.
earth.
Very good, Elena. He's called Adam because he was made from
Adamah.
Adamah, from the earth. Adamah means the earth. He's called Adam because he was made from the Adamah, from the earth. That's one answer. Now you ready for a Kabbalistic truth, ladies and gentlemen? I told you I wouldn't do any jargon. I'm doing a little Kabbalistic jargon now. There's another opinion. He's called Adam not because he's Adama, but because he is Adama. Adameh. Adameh means similar. 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 Similar to the one above. Man is created in the image of God. He is similar to the one above. He has godlike properties and capacities. One answer is we're called Adam because we're like the ground. Another answer is we're called Adam because we're Adamel Elyon. We are similar to that which is higher. In other words, one view of man is we're lowly like the ground. The other view is that we have the capacity to rise up on high and be godlike. So which one is right? It's like the famous story of the person who comes to the mystic and says, is the butterfly in my hand alive or dead? You remember the famous trick question? He's holding a butterfly. A child comes and says, I'm holding a butterfly in my hand. Is it alive or dead? It's a trick question. Because if he says alive, he'll just squish it and it'll be dead. And if he says it's dead, he'll go like this and let it free. So what did he answer? He says, the answer's in your hand. So which one are we? Are we Adama Elyon? Are we Adama? Are we like the ground? Are we like the one above? The answer's in your hand, ladies and gentlemen. It's up to us. It's up to us. And that, in many ways, is the struggle of life. As Ecclesiastes, back to Ecclesiastes, he starts off by saying futility of futilities. And then he goes a little deeper. And in chapter 3, he says, how many understand that the spirit of the human ascends on high, while the spirit of the beast descends to the earth? And he's not talking about an animal outside. He's talking about the animal inside. We have different tendencies within ourselves. We have the tendency to reach upwards with spirituality for meaning, and we have the tendency, like animals, to seek pleasure. And that's the tension. Are we seeking meaning or are we seeking pleasure? If we can get them both to be aligned, that's an amazing thing. But if we have to choose between pleasure and meaning, I think we'd all choose meaning most of the time because it's a challenge. And that's what makes us Adam. What makes us an Adam, a man, is the capacity to rise on high. In Yiddish, you know what we call such a person? A mensch. And over here we have a quote from one of Chabad rabbi in New Jersey, Rabbi Mendy Herson, Elena's friend. He made it into the book. What is the Torah? It's actually a very good insight from Rabbi Mendy Herson in Basking Ridge, New Jersey, who says like this. What is the Torah definition of a human? A human has the capacity of self-assessment. A human has the mental and moral capacity to override impulse. Can a dog go on a diet? A human can choose to follow his moral compass instead of his physical inclination. A human can calculate consequences beyond the immediate. That is the Torah's description of a human. The Torah definition of a mensch, something we should all strive for. Interestingly, the term has different connotations when used in American parlance. When a person is weak and less than noble, impulse-driven instead of morally focused, what do we say? Listen, he's only human. In our vernacular, recognizing that a person is human is acknowledging his inherent weakness. We see a human as inherently flawed and morally feeble. We cut a guy slack because we know he can't reach a noble goal. After all, he's only human. What can you really expect from this person of flesh and blood? Think about it. The Torah Jewish term of human, mensch, is something to strive for, while the American human is a fallback position in case of moral failure. Ladies and gentlemen, we are human, and that makes us great. That means we have the capacity to grow. That means we have the capacity to learn. That means we have the capacity to become better. And on page 13, we have an exercise. Now, this exercise is a homework exercise. This exercise on page 13 is a homework exercise because it's a very important exercise, but I want you to think about it. You need more time to think about this. And the first question is, in which ways have you grown and improved as a human being? I do personally an exercise every year before Rosh Hashanah. Every year before Rosh Hashanah, I do a personal exercise. One of the things I ask myself is, how did I grow in the past year? I start by asking myself, what did I learn in the past year about life? One would think then, one would hope that every year we learn something about life, right? It's not an easy it's not an easy question because, you see, last year I thought I knew everything there was to know about life. So what did I learn over the past year that I didn't know before, right? And I think every year we do learn new things. So in addition, and with that, what that really is a question of how did I grow over the past year? In other words, what growth did I do? And the next two questions are far less interesting, in my opinion. The next question is, which areas can use improvement? And what are ways to implement that in your life? Those are important questions, but we all know where we can use improvement, right? We all know our shortcomings, and we all know what we need to do, and hopefully we'll do it. But to me, the more interesting question, and it's a very important question, is what growth, and I'm asking, here they say, in which ways have you grown and improved as a human being? It's too broad that. I'd say over the past 3 years, how did you grow as a human being? Or over the past year, how did you grow as a human being? And I think recognizing how we are growing is a very valuable exercise for ourselves. Recognizing how we are growing, reflecting and recognizing what growth we have made gives us the capacity for further growth. So the homework exercise is not so much to figure out how you can improve. I'm sure you don't need me to help you figure that out. The whole world, people are always telling us how we should improve. But the question is, how have I grown? How have I grown over the past year? Or if it's easier, because it is easier, what did I learn over the past year or over the past 3 years? And so I'm going to ask you, this is a question for you. This isn't for me. You don't have to come back with your answers unless you want to. But it's an exercise to do over the next week. Think about how you have grown over the past year or the past 3 years. If it's easier to go over 3 years, 5 years. Growth. The first way in which humans are like trees is in growth. Like trees, the desire for self-betterment is inherent to our very nature. The reality is, if we're not growing, we're stunted. There's something wrong. But the good news is, like trees, we are growing. We actually are. We actually are growing. You know, I have I'm from South Africa, as you know. And from time, I go back to South Africa every few years, or, you know, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter, depending, sometimes every year. I try to go every year. But sometimes I go there and I see people that I haven't seen in 5 years, 10 years, because I go back to visit. You don't see everybody on every trip. And it's remarkable, something I realized a few years back, is I used to think that everybody would be exactly the same as the way I left them. It doesn't work that way. And people, I remember noticing all my school friends grew up. And they're not, I grew, they grew. Everybody's a lot wiser than we were. There are a few people that somehow in life their emotional development became stunted, but it's very rare. Most people are growing. And I think the exercise is, the first step is realizing we are growing. Let's be conscious of it. Let's recognize the growth we've done and think about the growth that we're going to do. A mensch, in Hebrew, in Yiddish, it's a mensch, in English, a human. Animals have impulses and instincts, and they act out their impulses and their instincts. Humans have this incredible capacity to restrain our instincts. We don't have to do everything that we want to do. Animals do what they want. That's what they do. Humans have impulse control, but on a deeper way, we have the ability to transcend our instinctive nature and not to just chase every pleasure in the world, but to align our pleasure with meaning and try to do more of that. Certainly not to do things that are harmful for us, and to try to find more and more meaningful areas in life at all times. And that's part of growth. Does anyone have any questions or comments about any of this? Anyone at home, any questions or comments?
Good stuff, Rabbi.
Thank you, Phyllis.
I'm sitting here and yeah.
Okay. So, we said before, if a scholar is worthy, you should learn from them, but if not, cut them down, right? Worthy means they are growing. If they're unworthy, it means they're just stunted. They're not growing as people. That's not a person you really want to learn from. It's important to learn from people that are growing. And people will learn from us when we are. And that's the first thing that we are looking to in trees. The second thing about trees is that they produce productivity. A quote from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, page 15. A tree, by definition, is meant to produce fruit. Like the verse says, a tree that produces fruit. That means it grows fruit in a way where its seed is within it, meaning that each fruit contains seeds that can grow into another tree. This idea is underscored by the New Year for trees on the 15th of Shvat, because the halachic importance of this day is all about the tree's fruits. As Rashi explains, we don't combine fruits that ripen before Shvat with those that ripen after when calculating tithes. The issue is a healthy tree is producing fruit, is producing. A healthy person needs to produce. Producing means we're doing something. We're doing useful things in the world. Over the past few years, numerous people have told me that one of the hardest things that they've had to do in their lives is transition from working to retirement. They spend so much time producing in a certain way. They're no longer doing that. How do they now stay productive? And they're right. Anyone who asks that question is in a good place, because we need to be productive as people. We have an inherent human need to be productive. This morning when giving the class, somebody pointed out to me that we have a real crisis today in America with our youth, because we have all these children or young adults graduating from college, and there's not enough jobs. and they're having a hard time finding jobs, and there's nothing, and that's very, very that's very challenging for the psyche of people not to be doing something, not to be producing, not to be doing something productive with their time. It's crucial that we productive. It's crucial for us to be productive. We see this in human nature. The Talmud has a fascinating quote, page 17, a great quote from the Talmud. The Talmud said, a person prefers one measure of their own over 9 measures of their friends, meaning growing. A person would rather grow, says the Talmud, one measure on their own than receive 9 times that as a gift. Or in English, a person would rather have $100 that they earned themselves than $900 that was given to them as a gift. They would appreciate it more. And that's true. That's true. The Talmud calls free bread, bread of embarrassment. No one feels productive. The importance of feeling productive, the feeling of doing things. So everybody who's taking this class obviously appreciates productivity, or you wouldn't be taking this class. Right? We're all using our time right now in a productive way. But it's so important to make sure that we are productive. You know, there's so many ways today the world tries to get our attention in ways and flood us with so much unproductivity and uselessness, especially, you know, these apps that we have on our phones, like Instagram and Instagram, right, where you can spend 3 hours watching nothing. 3 hours on, you turn around and what did I just do? And it's so, nobody ever woke up the next morning and said, oh, I wish I would have spent an extra hour on Instagram last night. Right?
Absolutely.
And it's and so so the way to deal with this is, there's a famous Hasidic saying from the first rabbi of Chabad that you can't clean out darkness with a broom. You have to light a candle. The importance of engaging in productive things, actively choosing productivity. So like I met a kid the other day who told me that the only way he can get himself from stopping to watch YouTube shorts. Do you know what YouTube shorts are? That's what the kids are watching. It's like these 20-second videos on YouTube. It's like TikTok on YouTube. It's 15 seconds, but they can sit there for hours watching nothingness. But if you turn on a 90-minute movie that was well produced and carefully crafted, they can do it, but suddenly, all of a sudden, it's productive time. They did something. I had a great story recently. I think I've told some of you the story. I mean, I just remembered the story. I had a rabbi in New Haven who was my teacher. I studied for a year in New Haven, and I had a teacher there, Rabbi Colemanson. And actually, this year on Rosh Hashanah, Rabbi Colemanson passed away. And a few weeks ago, there was a Zoom gathering for all his students for many years. He was actually a brilliant man. He was one of the foremost Talmudic scholars in the world. Very humble man, one of the foremost scholars of Talmud in the world. He published about 20 books that were studied by the greatest minds of our generation, really, a world-class scholar, Rabbi Colemanson. You never heard of him. He's the most brilliant sage nobody ever heard of. And I had the privilege of studying from him. And there was this gathering, and one of his children asked me if I would share a few words in memory of him, because I'd studied with him. And I said, I'll tell you a funny story. When I was there, I was 20 years old. And Rabbi Colemanson was, one day, it was a very interesting yeshiva in New Haven, where there were 20 students and the rabbi. And he was this unbelievable scholar, and we had the benefit of studying from him. It was an incredible opportunity that I had in my life. And one day, it was 5 o'clock in the afternoon, or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, probably, on a Sunday afternoon, and I don't remember what happened the night before. All I can tell you is, in the study hall where we were all supposed to be studying, there was only me and my study partner and the rabbi, and the other 18 guys were all sleeping upstairs. And the rabbi was sitting at his desk studying, and my friend and I were sitting and talking. And he looks up from his desk, and he looks at it and says, guys, why are you just talking? Learn something. And my friend said to him, he said, Rabbi, you have 18 guys cutting class and sleeping upstairs. We're here. Don't bother us. Go bother them. And he looked at us with a big smile on his face. And he says, boys, they're doing something. They're being productive. They're taking a nap. They're tired and they're taking a nap. You're sitting here doing nothing. It was a great lesson about productivity. The importance of finding ways in which we are productive. Taking a class, reading a book, being proactive and conscious about what we're doing, taking a course, exercising, whatever realm of life we're doing things, art, if you're writing, whatever we're doing, finding ways to be productive is a crucial, and in order to be productive, we usually have to be proactive. Because if we are going to be passive, well, there are trillion-dollar industries of people that are making sure that we're rather going to sit around doing pleasurable rather than meaningful things in our lives. There's a whole world out there that's going to try to suck us into pleasurable rather than meaningful. So the importance of proactively choosing productivity in whichever areas of life that we're looking for it. And we know this because just as trees need to be, or essentially are productive, so too we have to be productive. The third area, ladies and gentlemen, is helping others, giving to others. I'm skipping a slide. 1 second. We are wired to produce even if our needs are met. The next thing a tree does is trees give fruit. And we as people we are wired that we need to give. We need to give to others. There's a wonderful story in the Talmud, a lovely parable. Can be found in our books on page 19. The Talmud tells a story that two great sages met. And then, when they were taking leave of one another, Rabbi Nachman said to Rabbi Yitzchak, Master, give me a blessing. I'm on page 19 at the bottom of the page. Master, give me a blessing. Rabbi Yitzchak said to him, I will tell you a parable. This situation is comparable to one who was walking through a desert and who was hungry, tired, and thirsty. He found a tree whose fruits were sweet and whose shade was pleasant, and a stream of water flowed beneath it. He ate from the fruits of the tree, drank from the water in the stream, and sat in the shade of the trees. When he wished to leave, he said, Tree, tree, with what shall I bless you? If I say to you that your fruits should be sweet, your fruits are already sweet. If I say that your shade should be pleasant, your shade is already pleasant. If I say that a stream of water should flow beneath you, a stream of water already flows beneath you. Rather, I will bless you as follows. May it be God's will that all saplings that they plant from you be like you. So it is with you, he said to his friend. With what shall I bless you? If I bless you with Torah, you already have Torah. If I bless you with wealth, you already have wealth. If I bless you with children, you already have children. Rather, may it be God's will that your offspring shall be like you. Giving. Giving. Like trees, we have an innate desire to give, and we can only feel fulfilled when we are benefiting the world around us. There's a fascinating thing about a fruit. A tree produces a fruit. That fruit gets removed from the tree. So now we have less tree, right? No. Because in that fruit is a seed. Many seeds. Every fruit can produce many trees. When we give, our good deeds are our fruit. The way we give to others, that's our fruit. But we don't lose anything by it. We gain. Because in that fruit, there are seeds. And those seeds grow and make more trees. And we have more and more of us, more and more goodness, more and more tree because of our fruits. Yes, Marty?
Do we need to do quiet giving in order to justify or feel good about outward giving?
The answer is we need to do giving. The most important thing is to give. If it's more important, it's better to give and everybody knows about it than not to give at all. If somebody says, oh, I'm too humble, I don't want anyone to know how good I am, so they don't do anything, that's false humility.
Yeah.
They're not benefiting anyone. Giving is more important than humility. Giving humbly is also good. There's nothing wrong with giving quietly. But actually, sometimes it's better to give publicly. Because if you give quietly, nobody's going to be inspired by your giving. So if you do it publicly, you can inspire others to give as well.
Okay. So that was one
No,
of the-
there is a value.
Yeah.
There is a value to give quietly.
Yeah.
Now, there's different types of giving. We can give wisdom. We can give our time. We can give our money. And as humans, we need to be giving. So that might mean volunteering. That might be mentoring. That might mean financially giving. But we need to be giving.
There are just so many small little types of giving that can be the most beautiful of all. When an Uber driver comes to get me, I say, thank you for coming. And thank you, that was a nice ride. Those kind of givings are just as important.
So a kind word is sometimes the biggest gift we can give.
Exactly.
Sometimes a kind word can be the greatest gift we give. Beautiful. So like trees, we have an innate desire to give, and we can only feel fulfilled when we are benefiting the world around us. On page 21, we have a very interesting text from a couple of psychologists. There is great comfort in believing that your life and actions matter in the grand scheme of things. This conviction is referred to as existential mattering and is a strong component of the experience of meaning in life. While the concept of existential mattering often evokes images of famous and infamous people who have done extraordinary things in their lives, many people gain a sense of mattering through avenues more easily traversed. Research shows that feeling that you have made a positive influence on others is, unsurprisingly, almost always associated with the belief that your life is meaningful. Existential mattering that is often rooted in the sense that you matter to others, from helping strangers in need and providing social support to loved ones, to simply being a reliable friend. These are other ways to give. There's a lovely quote in the Talmud about giving. Page 22. Rabbi Akiva responded, my son, more than the calf desires to nurse, the cow wants to give milk. The giver needs to give more than the receiver needs to receive. Page 22, text 13, a very interesting midrash. King David said to God, Master of the universe, establish equity in your world by making rich and poor the same. God replied, if such were the case, who would preserve kindness and truth? If all were rich or all were poor, who would be able to do acts of kindness? Which is an interesting and fascinating thing to explore. The Talmud, Jewish law rules, a fascinating thing. So important is it to give. It's so essentially part of our psyche that we have to give, that on page 23, there's an interesting ruling in halacha, in Jewish law. Everyone is obligated to give charity, even a poor person who himself relies on charitable support must give from what they receive. The poor have to give charity too, because giving is a necessary part of living a healthy, productive, meaningful life.
Can you repeat the little anecdote of the Rebbe giving everyone $1 so that they could give tzedakah?
It's very interesting. So Marty knows, it's something we've spoken about before, when the Lubavitcher Rebbe would meet people, in his later years, he wanted to make himself available to people. So he would stand outside his office for hours every Sunday. And with the goal being that anybody who wanted to could walk by and receive a blessing and ask a question. And it's known that every person who walked by, the Rebbe would give them each $1 to give to charity. And somebody once asked the Rebbe, why do you give $1 to give to charity? And the Rebbe answered, because when two Jews meet, a third should benefit. And the idea being that each person who then met the Rebbe immediately became a messenger to do more kindness in the world. And the thing about that kindness is kindness spreads like fruit, like seeds that then grow into new trees. So we have this capacity to give. So the exercise over here is page 23, and these are exercises again to think about at home. In which ways have you been or are you currently helping others? Spiritually, emotionally, or financially? In which areas can you increase your giving? Spiritually, emotionally, or financially? And what are some ways to implement that in your life? Finally, ladies and gentlemen, the fourth thing we can learn from a tree. Oh, by the way, before we go there, Charlie Brown said the same thing. I think it's Lucy, right? Mm-hmm. She says, I'm intrigued by this view you have on the purpose of life, Charlie Brown. You say you were put here on earth to make others happy. That's right. I love these images where they just... So you're here to make others happy. That's right. What are the others put here for? It's very smart. Now, what's happening here? I've got this thing. Okay. The fourth thing about trees is relationships. Now, it's fascinating. Trees usually exist with more trees. One of the things that I've noticed in the backyard over here, you can't see it tonight, is the way it was 10 years ago when we moved into this house, there were far less trees. And some of them had actually been cleared out, and over the past 10 years, we've got at least a dozen young trees that have started to grow without us planting them. In other words, things fall, and these aren't fruit-bearing trees, but there's seeds and there's things, and there's there's all kinds of,
nuts and fruit.
And there's a whole ecosystem going on out there, and it's fascinating to watch, right? And they interact with each other. And the roots of one interact with the growth of another. In fact, I heard they say about the redwoods in California. The redwoods are the tallest trees and the oldest trees, right? And apparently they don't have very deep roots.
The centers right out and they still.
But apparently they don't have very deep roots. Their roots grow this way.
Right.
They grow sideways and they interweave with each other and they hold each other together. Something I didn't know, which I recently learned, is I think that the oak trees have deep roots and maple trees have wide roots. Did you know that? I didn't know that. The guy told me that the other day, and I might have got them mixed up between the two. But there's this idea that the way roots spread out and then they interact with each other, and you have this whole, so there's a whole relationship thing going on with trees. They're interacting with each other. And for fruit trees, sometimes you need a male and a female, right? Now, the truth is, ladies and gentlemen, trees are not as good at relationships as humans. Trees do have relationships, and we need to have relationships. We have an inherent need for relationships. But we have an even stronger capacity for relationship than trees. As humans, that's true also. Man in Kabbalah, man is considered the communicator. I want to go to the slide here. Look at the slide for a second, ladies and gentlemen. I promised you some jargon tonight, some Kabbalah jargon. This is a very deep, mystical idea. You can't see the top of it because we've got the people in the top here. Wait a second, I've got to move the people. Do you see it says Kabbalah language, the universe, man, the divine. You see that? Kabbalah teaches that there are 4 kingdoms of existence. The lowest kingdom of existence, the lowest strata of the universe is the minerals, the earth, and the minerals and the rocks and the inanimate things. Above that, we have plant life. We have tzomeach, the things that grow, trees, vegetables, things that grow. The difference between rocks and plants is rocks don't grow. Trees grow, plants grow. But they're stuck. They can't move. They are where they are. They're rooted in the ground where they are, and they don't move. Then you have animal life, which is chai. It's called chai. In Hebrew, this is called domem tzomeach chai, the animal life. And then, fascinating, Kabbalah says, the highest thing in this universe is a human being. And a human is described over here as a medaber. And a medaber literally means a speaker or a communicator. Now, fascinating, when scientists choose to classify man, they call us Homo sapien, the thinking being. Kabbalah says there's something even higher than the ability to think, and that's the ability to communicate. Have a relationship. Now, unfortunately, many people are worse than animals because we choose to go down to the earth rather than up to the heavens, like we said before. But we have the capacity to rise above everything and to take the whole world with us and elevate the whole world with us. So this is a Kabbalistic idea that everything in this world is divided into these 4 different kingdoms. Now, if that's true with the whole world, it's true with each of us internally as well. We have the mineral in us, the inanimate, the least alive part of ourselves is our actions, the most physical part of ourselves, just action. That's the mineral within us. The plant within us is emotion. The tree is the emotions within us. The thing about emotions is a small love can blossom into becoming a big love. A small envy can become a huge greed. A small fear can become a huge fear. Emotions grow. The humans as an animal are Homo sapiens. It's our minds that defines us as an animal. But what makes us really godly is the capacity to communicate. Communication and speech is the highest part of us, which is our capacity for relationships. In the letters of God's name, the 4 letters of God's name, Yud, Hey, Vav, and Hey, the first Yud corresponds to the Medaber, the speaker. Hey, the second one is intelligence. The Vav is emotion, and the Hey is action. We'll explore this more on another occasion, but I wanted to show you this Kabbalistic chart that shows this idea. The idea being, though, the central idea, the main idea here is that the capacity for communication and the need that we have as humans to have relationships in which we communicate well with others. Page 25. If you ask people, again from a psychologist, if you ask people what their most significant sources of meaning in life are, they perhaps unsurprisingly list their close relationships. That's because one of the pillars of a meaningful life is a sense of belonging. When people feel like they belong, according to psychologists Mark Leary and Roy Baumeister, it's because they are in relationships with others based on mutual care. In fact, the verse in Genesis says, text 16a on the bottom of 25, in Genesis, when creating man, it says, God formed the human from the dust of the earth, and he breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the human became a living being. You see how it says living being in English? The first translator of Torah was into Aramaic by a great sage named Onkelos, a convert who we studied about in one of our previous classes. Onkelos, when he translated those words, a living being, look how he translates it. The last words on page 26 of text 16b. God created dust from the earth, and he breathed into his nostrils the soul of life, and the human became a speaking spirit. He says speaking, communication, relationships. We're truly alive if we're in a relationship. That's what a living being is. The importance of relationships, because we need relationships in our lives. So, ladies and gentlemen, to summarize today's class, we're going to watch a little video. Hopefully you can hear this at home. Oh, wait, I know what I need to do. More. Share computer sound, mono. Hopefully we can hear inside as well. And let's hope for the best. Yeah?
We live in an age of unprecedented freedom. Go anywhere. Do anything. And still hollow inside. Comfort surrounds us. Warmer homes, softer beds, but comfort alone doesn't satisfy the soul. Wealth is at an all-time high. Packages always arriving, gadgets galore, and yet so many feel empty. Security has never been higher. Passwords, alerts, cameras everywhere, and still, anxiety is at an all-time high. So if security, wealth, comfort, and freedom can't fill us, what can? The Torah says we're like trees. Want to feel alive? Watch the tree. Here are 4 lessons. A tree never stops growing. We're the same. Our souls crave steady inner growth. Trees are productive. Just look at their fruit. We're wired like that too. We feel fulfilled when we generate sweet, lasting, meaningful deeds. Fruit isn't for the tree, it's for giving. Our souls are the same. We feel deep joy specifically when we share and care. A tree intertwines its roots with other trees, lending each other support. We need that too. Relationships are our source of strength. True freedom is growth. True comfort is productivity. True wealth is giving. True security is in relationships. So feed your soul and watch your life bloom.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, any last questions or comments before we call it a night?
This was so relevant, Rabbi. Thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis, for sharing that.
Perfect time for me.
Fantastic.
Are you gonna tell the people on YouTube to subscribe?
Dobe says, to the people that are still watching on YouTube, please subscribe so you'll know when videos come on. Thank you.
How do you subscribe?